when they pushed everyone away, it became anarchy.
Yeah.
Left of the courthouse. Dude, that was some crazy shit.
It was, I mean, the amount of crazy? Just like, and like every, you know, they had garbage trucks set up to keep car traffic down, and they're just burning all the garbage trucks.
I filmed people just lighting garbage trucks on fire, and the police just look at them.
Yeah, the police are right there. And
hey,
that, so getting back to the way that I came across the guys in front of the business, including Kyle, was I went back into the hotel. The Stella Hotel is like this beautiful old Art Deco hotel that's right next to the courthouse. And we were staying there because of its proximity. I went in, got on the Wi-Fi to like post all of the footage of the police volleying everybody away from the courthouse. And then I like saw on Twitter your tweet, as well as a couple of other videos that showed armed individuals in front of this business. And the night before, Shelby and I interviewed a guy in front of that same business who literally had a power washer, and his buddies were carrying, not kidding you, like garbage cans and buckets full of water to throw them on the car fires because the fire department wasn't doing anything. So I immediately dropped what I was doing to go out there and interview the guys with guns out there protecting the business, because I was like, this is an extension of the story from last night that we had these guys with power washers and buckets of water trying to keep the business from burning because there was no fire department. Now, you know, in the absence of police, there's armed individuals. So I went downstairs and ran outside, and the first thing that happened is I basically walked up to that business, and Kyle was like standing right in front of the business. There were a couple of other guys with rifles behind him and a couple on the roof. And I was like, does anyone want to do an interview about, you know, why you guys are out here? And Kyle volunteered himself. So that was basically about 15 minutes before the shooting.
Well, and I want to remind people, if you say, oh, why was, like, this is the question I want to ask you. When people are like, well, why would there be a militia out there with guns? Earlier that night, somebody had already pointed a gun at my face. I think they pulled the trigger.
Yeah, that was wild. That was wild.
I think
that clip is wild, dude.
He locked it and he put a gun in my face.
That was not safe.
And pulled the trigger. Reminds me how retarded I am for asking him what he's got right there. Because I saw he had a gun and he's like, and points it at my face. I was like, I don't like guns in my face. But this is why I hate I don't even care about, you know, with like corporate media or leaving corporate media, because I already know what I'm capable of doing. And that night I'm like, oh, you know, I might be a little bit of a bitch, but, you know, I can get jumped. I can have guns in my face. I can do things. I know I can survive life in general pretty well without flinching. I am a bitch when it comes to massive spiders when I go visit Australia. Ooh, it's nasty. But when it comes to thugs with guns, I apparently don't get too scared. And I should, with the FBI crime stats that just came out. Certain population, that's 13% of the population, controls, you know, up to 60% of violent crimes. But we won't talk about that because it's racism. But this was a pretty mixed group of white and black people, which is different, where I would say that a lot of these riots, even though it's Black Lives Matter, Wisconsin is a largely white state as well. There was a lot of white people. This wasn't just a bunch of black people fighting for independence and against police violence. This was people who were there by the third night who wanted to riot. I would say they were like people who just wanted chaos. Like, I don't think these were really, I don't know if you have a different opinion, but I don't feel like the third night people were the same as the second or the first night people. Like, I saw people from the riots in Chicago by the third night. I saw some of the same people. Do you get where I'm going with this?
I don't even view race as a component in so far as, you know, basically in any power vacuum, like things can descend into chaos so quickly. And so we saw the same thing at the Stop the Steals as we did at the BLM riots, which is basically like, the moment a couple of people get pepper sprayed, the moment a couple of people start banging into police and get billy clubbed down to the ground, like there's a real like kind of Lord of the Flies effect that happens where it just like your fight or flight response gets triggered, and all deductive reasoning and rationality just goes completely out the window. And so that's just like an aspect of human nature when you have a bunch of people grouped in one place and there aren't police there to keep law and order, and there's no like idea that, you know, if I do something bad, I'm going to get arrested. Like, that's what Kenosha was, and that's what so many of these other protest zones were. It was like a place where the government was like literally allowing for citizens to become the police, which in America, you know, I think like law and order is one of the key foundations of us being able to live harmoniously together. And so when you throw that out the window because you're trying to prove a political point that Donald Trump is like a bad guy, then you're literally failing your citizens, and you were elected to keep them safe.
Right. And I think, I only point out the race factor because the argument that we'll get to was originally a white guy went and hunted down black people fighting against police violence.
The media wanted to frame it in that context.
And that's why I bring that up, is that this wasn't a group of a bunch of black people fighting against systemic racism that just got shot by a
the
Nazi
amount of
group.
people like during the trial who were like, yo, I didn't even realize like that you guys who got shot were white.
Were white.
Because,
that's what I'm saying.
Because
they
of
were
the
white
narrative
people.
that was spun up.
There was a lot of white people there. And so we go to this building, and I remember the first time I really talked to Kyle, I think he said it was his first interview on TV, which I think that's funny calling this show's TV. But I remember seeing these guys defending a building. They were throwing CS gas or something out into the group. And I thought it was interesting that the only people defending property were these, I'm calling a militia up front, 'cause that's what I thought it was, because that's what the police said.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, okay, there's militia groups defending property. I thought that was cool. Maybe you disagree with me, but I was like, thank God there's some people out here protecting these businesses, because the police sure as hell are not protecting businesses. And I'm like the rest of America. I'm trying not to be biased, but I'm like, what the fuck are they? Why don't property? You go, property doesn't matter. They have insurance. Dude, do you know insurance? How much time it takes to file something? A lot of people can't even make a month's rent. Plus, this is during the pandemic.
And plus the revenue that you lose in the meantime, if your business gets... A lot of people were already
hurting for months because their businesses were shut down. So I'm thinking... Thank God. I thought that was cool. I was like, Kyle, what are you doing? I didn't know his name, but what are you doing out here? And he said he was armed. I was like, you have live rounds. I was trying to see if they were like, messing around. I already had someone pull a gun out on me. At this point, I didn't think any of the shooting was going to happen. I don't know about you, but when I interviewed them for the first time, I was like, I didn't know Kyle was 17. Yeah. I thought these were like 21-year-old dudes out with guns, trying to protect their community.
I told the police that night that I thought he was like he looked young, but that he was in his 20s. Yeah, same thing. There's an assumption there that people out there are going to be adults, but I would say, I wouldn't necessarily think it's cool, but I certainly understand that those people came out there with good intentions, which is like that business was getting, the Car Source 1, 2, and 3 were all getting burned, and they asked, them to come out to defend the business. And so
was that confirmed?
So the owners of the business actually like totally got lawyered up once the shooting happened. And so it's not confirmed, but on the night of, I was told the night before, I was told by the guys who were putting out the fires that they were basically asked to come out by the owners of the business. So, I don't think that they were standing specifically in front of that business, and they were all coalesced around that business. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that they had the intention of defending specifically that business. And, Kyle ran to another car lot, which was owned by the same people. It was another Car Source lot. But I think an important detail there is that Kyle ran to that business alone with a fire extinguisher and an AR and a med pack. And the other guys who were defending the Car Source 1 didn't go with him. So I would put a lot of the onus on the individuals who were, out there armed with Kyle, who let him go out there completely alone. Because when you have a mob of like 200 angry malcontents who are burning buildings down, and there's a kid who's completely alone, it with a rifle and a fire extinguisher, it's going to draw a lot of attention. So I think that, there's a difference between going out with good intentions and making good decisions. And there's a difference between lawful action and like what you should do in a situation where it's clearly dangerous. And, I don't know. I think it's one thing to have a business get burned down, but it's another for individuals to die for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I will say, I think that's what. Did you run into Kyle at the same place?
And I'm not justifying their actions by any means.
Did you run into Kyle at the same place I
obviously,
did?
Rosenbaum was an aggressor. He chased him down.
Right, but this is what I want to say is that I remember I ran into Rosenbaum for the first time down the street at the gas station.
Yeah, I didn't see him until the shooting.
Well, I ran into him because I noticed he was calling everyone with the guns the N-word.
Yeah, and he said the N-word actually right before he chased after Kyle.
Yeah, and I remember witnessing him. I think Julio got the famous footage of him being, shoot me, N-word, shoot me. I remember seeing Rosenbaum was throwing things. They were trying to blow up a gas station. To remind people, they lit a
church too.
Yeah, they lit
beautiful church built in like 1846.
Yeah, they lit a trash can, a dumpster on fire, and tried to ram it into a gas station and talk about blowing it up. To show you the level of IQ of these people, trying to blow up a gas station within 60-foot proximity, you're going to die as well. So I wasn't too happy. And
by the way, I did note in the article, like literally the fact that, Rosenbaum became this martyr for the left, which was, they just ignored all these pertinent facts about him, which was like, this guy's shouting the N-word and you're like making him a martyr of the BLM movement. I mean, how can you not see the irony in that? They just ignored those facts.
Shouting the N-word is the pinnacle of the Black Lives Matter movement. But going ahead, so it's like, I focused a lot of my research. The only reason why I chased these people is because Andy No, who's another journalist, was like, hey, can you film some Antifa? Is there any black bloc there? And I'm like, yeah, there's for sure black bloc. And I noticed the black blocs left the gas station and went down the road towards cars.
Yeah.
This car's worth
because you were there before any of it happened.
Yeah, so I went and followed them ahead of time to go capture them doing the damage, because I always say this, that black people loot, white people burn. So it's like white people would burn the buildings.
I saw plenty. Yeah.
Like
I saw plenty of white people looting too, but
no, I know, but that was my joke of like saying like white people would break the windows, black people would loot, and white people would then throw Molotov cocktails and burn a building down as the joke. They'd already burned down a correctional facility. There was multiple buildings burned down. It was in total chaos. We get to the car source. I'm filming them break the windows of these cars. They're lighting them on fire, hitting them with metal bats.
The FBI's up in the air filming it all,
which I didn't know. And to put into perspective, if we flipped this around, we can just use this method. There's a car here, an SUV, in front of me. All the windows are broken out, okay? All the windows are. They're trying to light the car on fire, trying to blow it up literally blow up the car into the gas tank. Not smart to try to blow up cars while you're there.
You don't know how much gas is in there.
I'd already seen them blow up cars in Dallas months earlier. So I'm filming this, and this is when out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing people beat each other up. They've pulled a gun on my face. They're burning down buildings. I mean, they almost killed this old guy. They burned down his building while he was inside. People were passing children out of windows, because remember, this is a metropolitan area. So there's businesses on the first floor, residences on the second floor. They're burning down buildings while there's kids inside. And if you want to corroborate that, you can. There's literally signs saying, please don't burn this. There's kids upstairs, etc. People are passing kids out of windows. I did see this stuff happen. It's a little bit to the left. So I'm already there feeling like I'm in a war zone. And here's where I see this kid, Kyle, running up. He's running up to the car on the opposite side where you are.
Yeah. I thought I was filming.
Rosenbaum is coming up as well, chasing him.
Threw some kind of plastic bag at him.
You're behind Rosenbaum, right?
Yeah.
And I'm filming, and I just see this kid in the green shirt turn around with his rifle. And I don't see the altercation. It was so quick to me. Like I don't claim to have it. It was just like, boom. And I'm like, oh shit. And then it's like, because you hear a shot first.
Yeah, it was that first, I
don't know, who was that shot first? Someone shot somewhere. I heard,
no, he was just arrested. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I just hear, boom, and there's a shot.
Zeminski or something
Zeminski.
Something like that. So we're going to get slammed out there by the commenters.
Some name, but I hear a shot. I'm like,
a lot of names to keep track of, a lot of,
but
difficult
I'm saying,
names.
I was already, boom, so I hear like, and I'm like, oh shit, shots fired. And then almost like within like pretty shortly after that, this kid's running up and it's like, boom, 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 boom. And I hear a couple shots go.
It was 4 shots in like 0.7 seconds.
Okay, so this is where I want to know your perspective. My perspective is people are trying to destroy a car lot. Somebody shoots one gun, then I just see some muzzle flash, somebody shoots another gun, and I run for cover. Like I ran for cover because people don't realize this, that after Kyle
and there were more
shots,
gunshots after too.
Everyone started. It sounded like shots started coming from everywhere, and you could hear bullets. You could hear them ricochet.
Dude, and that's the interesting thing is, a lot of people after I wrote the article were like, I never asked to be a victim in the case. I told police were asking where the night of. They asked me where my eyes were, like what was I watching as this was going down. And so that article is like my perspective on the ground, not like this after the fact, like let's all, kind of like sit behind our keyboards and give an analysis of what happened. I mean, it was literally published in the essay section. So this is not like claiming to be some kind of like objective analysis of exactly every single piece and detail of what happened. It was my perspective that I saw on the ground that night. And so where my eyes were at the time was as I'm running up, the moment that Zeminski shoots that shot off, Kyle turns around, and it's unclear to me whether he felt cornered because they're actually like, there were cars parked and it was almost like a dead end.
The vehicle.
Yeah, so exactly. So there's 2 different things going on, which is the gunshot went off, but also like he reached what was somewhat of a dead end. And so I told police that. And then at the time, Rosenbaum, right when he turned around, Rosenbaum's still going. There's only a matter of like 2 seconds from when Kyle turned around to when Rosenbaum was upon him. And he lunged for the weapon and Kyle dodges around it. So at that time, I'm watching the barrel of the rifle because I'm now realizing after he turned around that I'm behind Rosenbaum and Rosenbaum's lunging for the weapon and that I'm potentially caught in the line of fire. And so I'm focused on the barrel of the gun. Rosenbaum misses and Kyle shoots very quickly. And as Rosenbaum's collapsing down to the ground after being shot, I looked down because I heard something go past me, and it's hard to, it was like a sensation of, it's hard to say whether or not like it was a ricochet with the concrete hit my legs, and I had like these wind pants on. And so whether or not it was like the air from I'm not sure exactly why I looked down, but I know that I looked down because I thought maybe, that I had been hit. So I told police that I looked down at my legs and stamped my feet to make sure that I was okay. And what the prosecution did was take that anecdote and then use it to make me a victim. And so I never asked for myself to be a victim of reckless endangerment in the trial. That was just what the prosecution did. But then after that happened, I'm asking myself, like, okay, if I go and say, I don't want to be a victim, like that's something that I could have done. I had my friend's dad, who was a lawyer, advising me on this. Then people will say, oh, he's just trying to get Kyle off, and he has like bias in the situation. And then my strength as a witness would be undermined. So it was a balancing act between like, I want to tell the truth and I want for the truth to come out in court. And if I go out ahead of the trial and try to say like, I'm not a victim, I'm not this, then people would perceive that as me, basically being biased in favor of Kyle. So I basically waited for the trial for all of this to come out. But you can see now on the infrared footage, and it's as clear as day, there's a heat signature of a ricochet, like 15 feet in front of me.
You almost got shot.
And so, yeah, and basically there's no two ways about that. And so people can like disagree with my words. I encourage people to disagree. That's like what our discourse is about. I know that it pissed off a lot of people, but at the same time, like the facts are the facts, and you can see that heat signature of that ricochet in front of me. And whether it's 15 feet or 10 feet, it doesn't make a difference because the bullet went right past my legs. And I'm not, I don't know what would have happened to Kyle if he hadn't shot. I don't know. It's very possible that he could have died. But what I was trying to get across.
Did you see Rosenbaum go for his gun? Because that's the key thing. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, he went for the front portion of the rifle.
Yeah, so Rosenbaum, this predator, like pedophile guy, grabs a child's gun or tries to grab the front of the gun, and then Kyle shoots. To me, sitting there was no other option for Kyle but to shoot. Like, I firmly believe that because he was between a car and rioters and then another guy. Mm-hmm. Somebody's grabbing his gun. I would have blasted that motherfucker.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say like whether or not he actually made contact with the weapon, because at that time, like, I was behind both of them, and or rather I was in front of Kyle and behind Rosenbaum. And by that point, Rosenbaum's lunging body was obscuring my view of the very, very front portion of the rifle that fired the round. But what is clear is based on the autopsy and the burns that ended up on Rosenbaum's hand, he was extremely close to the weapon. So if Kyle hadn't dodged around, I do believe that he would have gotten a hold of it. And it's extremely hard. There's no way that we could surmise like what would have happened, but it wouldn't have been good. That much is for sure.
Okay, so at least we agree on that, because once I took cover, which is the smart thing to do in these situations, considering there was a lot of shell casings, a lot of firing going, I run up, I grab my phone, I immediately run right back to where the shooting happened to try to surmise what's going on, not knowing if there's going to be more shootings. And that's when I see Joseph Rosenbaum on the floor. I didn't see a lot of blood. I think I wrote he might have gotten shot in the head. I didn't know what happened. Apparently he got shot in the spleen. Was that what it was?
Yeah, the head was a ricochet. And actually what happened was when he was lying face down, there was a very small hole on the top of his back. And I rolled him over expecting that, since the entry wound was on his back, that there would be some kind of exit wound on the front. But it turns out that, I guess, as Kyle shot at that particular round, which was probably like the second, third, or fourth round, it just went straight down his body. So there was no clear exit wound on the front portion of his body. And it sounds to me like, based on the autopsy, that bullet went basically straight down, exploded his lungs and his liver. And it said in the autopsy that his pelvis was shattered as well. So I was expecting some kind of big exit wound. And obviously people can play armchair quarterback all they want, but in the chaos of the moment, somebody shouted, his head. And I had taken my shirt off to try to, stave off, to try to plug up whatever and exit wound I thought was there. And the moment that they shouted his head, I put my shirt there. And just a few moments later, somebody said there's a hospital right up the street. So there was like no time to like undo his pants and look for an exit wound, or like, I mean, I know that there's going to be jokes about, you know, undoing the pants of a pet, but in that moment, I didn't know A, that he was, what his criminal history was, and B, things were so chaotic that there was, the moment that somebody said there's a hospital across the street, it was like, there's no reason for us to try to do any kind of medical aid any further here, because we're not going to achieve anything with this screaming mob of people. Let's just get him to the hospital. So we carried him across the street. And by the way, I included the detail of the fact that like I got punched in the head multiple times as I was carrying him. This was by no means like a sensible group of people. And I'm not claiming, at no point did I try to claim that, you know, the rioters were somehow virtuous and that Kyle was somehow a villain. Like I quite literally said in the article that he's also not a white supremacist. But the point being that like the polarization of Rosenbaum being a martyr on one side and Rittenhouse being, you know, a hero on the other, what was lost was the human side of it, and the fact that everybody out there was desperate in some way to, you know, either protest the institutions that failed them or just uphold some kind of order in the absence of police and medical personnel and fire department.
Right, and I think the difference is, though, is that I'm filming this, Kyle's running away down the street to go, from what we found out later, turn himself into cops. They led him through the line, but I see people chasing him. Now, I didn't witness I heard the next shots of Huber and Groskowitz. What is it? Groskowitz. So to show you how low IQ these people are, and I'm not trying to make light of this, this is what I want to talk to you about our different perception of whether these are victims or not, is to attack Kyle with a skateboard. That dude got blasted in the chest, right? That was Huber.
It was one shot to the heart.
Yeah. Okay. So
I didn't say that. Well, so I use the word victim to associate with Rosenbaum, and that was
so Rosenbaum tried to grab his gun. That was retarded.
Yes, exactly. And so that word, there were a number of things that happened when I wrote that article. It was originally supposed to go to a very large Substack that I won't name who it was, but I went back and forth with that editor. They were trying to change my language, and by the time, like basically at the 11th hour, they just canceled the piece. And so I went to Newsweek instead. And some of the way that I use that word was changed slightly. I will still own up to what was written, because I did, you know, proofread it at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. And so I'm not like, you know, trying to claim that like somehow my words were twisted around and it's not my fault. But I did use that word because it's not in the legal sense, it's in the human sense of that man is gone and Kyle's still here. And so what I wanted to identify with that word is the fact that that guy never even had a chance from the moment that he got raped when he was 4 years old. And to just gloss over that and just call him a pedo, I think is to negate the cycle of tragedy that was surrounding what started with his horrible stepdad that did that to him in the first place. And so I think if we're going to understand what really happened there, then we have to come to terms with the fact that that was a human being who died, and that was a very troubled, sad, and evil person. But to just say the word evil, I think, is to gloss over that cycle of tragedy that I think if we're going to move forward, we need to focus on eliminating that and ensuring that people have good, stable family lives where they can grow up in a stable home where they don't end up like him and don't end up dying with that regret.
But Kyle didn't grow up in a stable home either.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's a sign of the entire area. But dude, if you go to grab somebody's gun, like Rosenbaum, if you're chasing somebody and you grab their gun, I don't mean you deserve to die, but I don't feel sympathy, because I don't think you even need to go be in a stable home.
And I never asked for sympathy, though.
Right, but I'm still saying, like, if you go to grab someone's gun and you get killed, it's not like I celebrate death, but you do deserve to die. Meaning, it's like if that guy that pointed a gun at my face, that kid earlier, and I go to grab his gun and he shot me in the head, I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. It's like, dude, it sucks that I died. I'm sure my family would mourn my death. But dude, you don't grab somebody's gun. There's brands that help make this show possible, and most importantly, make it possible for you to support what matters most, which is why I got to tell you about the boxers I'm wearing today. Yes,
Whoa.
I am wearing UNDERTAC boxers. So UNDERTAC is a company, if you don't know this, they're a company that loves America. They love freedom of speech. They actually reached out to me after the Kyle Rittenhouse event when I got deplatformed, when I lost revenue from other sponsors, said, we're going to continue to support you. We believe in your right to speak out freely. And the best part about their boxers is they're not these rainbow waistband, Fruit of the Looms for fruits. They're actually battle tested, special forces tested. They don't ride up. They wick out water and moisture. They don't lose elasticity. And most importantly, they're made of cotton, so they don't have all the polyester crap that makes you lose sperm count. It's a big deal.
I don't wear underwear, but if I did,
you would get UNDERTAC. Yeah. And they're amazing boxers, guys. I wear them everywhere on every trip. They literally are the official underwear of Slightly Offensive. And make sure you get some for yourself. Get a spare. Get one for your man. Get one for yourself. Buy a pair. They're so amazing. They come in amazing colors. And of course, they also donate portions of the profits to veterans groups. So it's amazing to get. Make sure that you support yourself right now. Get the best boxers that allow you to produce the most amount of sperm, keep your junk in its place, and allow you to move freely and support what matters most. Go to getundertac.com, GETUNDERTAC.com. So go to getundertac.com, use promo code offensive20, OFFENSIVE20 for 20% off site-wide. Please support them. They're supporting Slightly Offensive. Getundertac.com, promo code offensive20. Check it out.